welcome. I am recording, making sure that I've got that happening. Okay, I just feel like I'm doing a gazillion things. So the way Kylie and I are going to take us through this presentation today is I'm going to do a bit of talking. Kylie's going to do a bit of talking. We're going to do a bit of talking. We know what we want to be able to share with you, but there will be questions, no doubt, that you have. You can either write them down or stick them in the chat. We will have some time at the end to go through your questions with you to help you understand how we are using this as a new part of our, or as an existing part of our toolbox. Because one of the things that we've noticed is every single one of us is being asked to do more with less, right? So clients are coming to us with increasingly, well, it feels like increasingly complicated issues, increasingly complicated psychosocial issues. There's lots of extra things that they're trying to contend with. Hey, Ilsa, and we're just trying to find ways that we know work, that we've had some experience with, to be able to empower other health professionals around the world, because we do have an international audience, to help them make this sense of stuck and sticky clients a little less hard work on us, but still getting incredible results. Hello, Jane. Lovely to see you as well. So what is this session going to be about? Would you like me to cover that one, Jo? I would love you to cover that one, Kylie.
I feel like I need to jump in and help you out at some point. So Jo and I are very, very passionate about helping you guys to work better and more effectively with stuck and sticky. We call them sticky clients because clients that are stuck, it doesn't usually come from nowhere. It's usually this sort of sliding process into being really stuck, and it can sometimes happen before our very eyes and we just don't know what to do about it. So what we are going to do in this presentation is share with you guys how we as clinicians need to go beyond those core clinical skills that we were taught at university. We want to maximize the independence, capacity, and capability of the clients who become complex, sticky, and stuck. That's hard to say today. we want to do this by activating the resilience that all of our clients have through a method of neuro-based coaching. And we want to help those where more traditional approaches to therapy have not been working. So literally, we are helping those stuck clients become unstuck. And we've been doing this for a while now, so we've got quite a bit of experience and evidence that what we're doing is working.
Yeah, it is really cool. So I want to help you understand, for those who don't know what Kylie and I actually do on the ground in our clinical work, our context today is from the lens of helping people who return to work following injury, illness, and trauma. But Kylie has been using this in schools, with children, parents, and teachers, in community services, with staff and clients. And she's also been in corporations working with employees and leadership. So if you hear us talking about return to work or recovery from injury or recovery from illness today, please understand that what we're talking about is our context, but you can apply this to any context, right? Good, nodding from Kylie. That's really important.
Pretty much anywhere where there is adversity.
Say that again?
Pretty much anywhere where there is adversity, this works.
Yeah. Did I summarize that okay? Like you've shown this in schools, you've talked through this with community services, corporations. Is there anywhere else that you've been where you've delivered this that you can think of off the top of your head?
Oh, look, that covers pretty much of them. Schools, workplaces, teams, individuals, children, as well as adults, families, whole teams. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so how this program came about. So like I said before, our context is return to work, recovery and rehabilitation, because that's kind of our zone of genius. So we have been doing this work for a long time, and we get very frustrated when we see that traditional accepted models are just not working. And there's all this rhetoric in our industry. I don't know if you've got rhetoric happening in your industries, about a client-centered biopsychosocial rehabilitation approach. We observe that there's very little evidence of this actually being delivered, right? And that's not because therapists or clinicians don't know what to do. It's just because the structures that they are involved in working with don't allow them to do it, okay? We also have some myths in our industry and here in Australia that a true client-centered biopsychosocial model tends to be expensive and clients don't have any accountability. And what we're going to show you today is through this process and what we enable people to do, it actually cuts costs and increases client accountability without us having to do anything. They actually take this on themselves. So we're actually helping clients take responsibility for their own participation, decisions, and behaviors. And how much nicer is it going to be for us as health professionals when we don't have to do all the freaking heavy lifting for clients all the time? Now, here in Australia, we have various schemes. So we've just tabled some of them here to kind of give us some social cred. So we have used this in a variety of legislative frameworks here in Australia. So iCare, Comcare, life insurance insurers, the lifetime care and support participant. We've worked with employers and private clients. Basically, what we're trying to say here is we've used this approach with all kinds of people from all kinds of background, and it really doesn't matter who was paying the bills. We put together our combined 60 years of experience. We hate saying that. Hate it. But when we actually looked at that, we were both a bit stunned the days we did the math, and we went, actually, we've been around for a really long time. And now it's our opportunity to be able to mentor, guide, and share with the people what we're learning. So Kylie.
Yes. So we were talking about sticky, stuck clients. So clients and people in complex situations. Now, these people meet the criteria of placing a large financial burden on the scheme. Why? Because they don't move. They don't make progress with traditional methods. This isn't just in wages benefit, but in treatment, rehabilitation aids, equipment repairs, and replacements for life, depending on the type of scheme that we are in. As you all know, you are at risk of long-term unemployment, the longer you're out of work and the more barriers that you have. And then we also have secondary medical and health concerns that come from experiencing this worklessness, not to mention what it does to our mental health. There's also then those other risks of relationship breakdown, increased mental health diagnoses, and increasing the social and economic burden on the scheme and the community. Now, if that isn't adversity, I'm not really sure what is. You know, I remember as a young rehab counsellor, you know, thinking that we'd get the referral and it was always just the diagnosis on the page, you know, lower back injury or right shoulder or whatever it was. But it never was that. It was always these things that come in as a complex interaction of barriers that these people have. And we have to treat the person as a whole. We have to look at all of the barriers and all of the things that they're facing if we're going to help them move forward.
Absolutely. And this is why it's so important for us to actually understand that what we do in a therapy room or in a treatment room has such a bigger context. We often know that kind of at an intellectual level, but when you see it written down like this, it's like my work, what I'm doing with you right here is actually got an impact for you across all the domains of your life. And how can I help you take action in here today that is small enough for you not to feel overwhelmed, but big enough for you to start seeing the ripple effects across your whole life? One of the other myths that I need to bust consistently in my space is that everybody likes to think that staying at home and being paid to not work sounds like fun until it's their reality, especially if that reality was through an incident, an illness, or somebody did something to you that was not your choice. And in the 30 years that I have been doing this work, I have never heard a client describe their illness or injury experience as fun. So for people who are out of work for a long time, people who are struggling to stay at work, people who are at risk of losing their job, it's not that they're doing this on purpose. And I think that's just one of the myths that some of us need to bust through all the time. Is like, this isn't fun for you. Being in this situation, adversity is not fun for you. You may not know what to do to get out of it. And that's why I'm here. I'm a resource to help you with that.
There's also, Jo, sometimes a really, it's a strong, but sometimes it's an unspoken theme that people feel from the people that are supposedly supporting them. Sometimes it's insurers, sometimes it's, you know, it can be doctors that are frustrated, but a lot of the people that I speak with, they have this fear that people think they're lazy because they're not working. And that just adds this layer of heaviness to what they're already dealing with, because that then brings this component of shame along with it as well, which is something else that we need to help them come through and deal with.
And I think that's an unspoken bias that we often turn up with, that we don't even know that we have, especially when we're seeing clients back to back and back to back and back to back, and we have KPIs around us. And I always talk about chasing the 0.2 of a billable hour, and we forget that sometimes our attitudes are feeling pressured, sometimes of our behaviors around, I've got this other stuff, I've got this report I need to write, or I've got these other clients who need that can sometimes seep into, without even trying to do it, seep into a client in front of us. It's a tonality thing. And let's face it, sometimes our clients are really sensitive and they can pick up on that stuff. We pick up on that stuff. They're going to pick up on that stuff. So I just want to take you through a bit of a model of what we're currently seeing. Like, I know we would all here stand on our soapboxes and say the medical model doesn't work. Unfortunately, it's alive and well. It is very much alive and well. And what we currently see working in very simplistic frameworks, in very simplistic terms, is somebody turns up with a diagnosis, and then we're all starting to think about what are the functional expectations of that diagnosis. So it's like, you've got a broken leg, don't walk on it, right? Therefore, you should be wearing a plaster cast or a moon boot for the next 6 weeks. So we've got a diagnosis, then we start applying these functional expectations to the diagnosis. Then we start thinking about what are the task performance expectations around that. So if I've got a diagnosis and my leg's broken, I shouldn't be walking. Does that mean I should be standing? Does that mean I can chop up vegetables to make food for the day? Can I go to work if my job involves lots of walking and standing? Can I actually walk up and down the stairs to catch the train or the bus or the taxi? Or which leg did I break? Can I actually drive? Then we actually move on to life role suitability. Now, we as health professionals, we do this so fast. We don't even realize we're doing it now. But this is essentially what we were taught to do. We make a diagnosis, we apply what we expect the functional expectations are. So how this works out, you've got depression. That means I can assume, and I'm going to watch out for the fact that you find it difficult to initiate and your mood is going to be flat. Therefore, when I ask you to do homework as a part of your therapy, you're going to find that really difficult. And I now need to be interested in what it's like for you to be the father in this family. That's how that turns up for us. But there's a cohort of people where this model, regardless of what the diagnosis is, just does not work. And these are the people that we find stuck and sticky because we can't take them through a linear process. So when we're faced with these people, we often get into the space of, I actually don't know what to do with this person. I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. And then one of two things are likely to happen. The first thing, nothing. We do nothing because we feel like we need to have all the answers. As health professionals working in the realms that we work in, we feel a lot of pressure to be the solution, not be solution focused all the time, but to be the solution. So the second thing that happens is we might just recommend something. Oh my gosh, I've got to find something that works for this person. I'm just going to throw out a whole heap of somethings until something works. And what that tends to do is if you have enough reinforcement of failure with your clients, you're actually going to make your clients feel worse. And then you're going to feel worse. You're going to feel like you're being ineffective. They're going to feel like the therapy or the treatment isn't working. Nobody's winning. Nobody's getting better. You're feeling lousy about your work, and it's lose, lose, lose. Don't worry, we're not going to stay in this place of pessimism for too long, I promise you. Kylie, you want to take this one up?
Yeah, sure. So because of all of those barriers that we've been facing, Jo and I put our heads together and worked out there's got to be a way that works. And I was exposed to this model way back in 2010, actually, quite a while now. And it was a model that helps us to activate our resilience, but we've taken it a few steps further and added, neuro-based coaching to how we work with this to ensure that whatever we're teaching the client sticks. And what we then want to do is obviously upskill you guys so that you can then have this as another tool in your toolkit. We are not saying in any way that this is the only thing that you use. We are saying it's another effective tool that we know, number one, increases your resilience as a clinician, which I think that's a pretty great win-win, because this work is hard and we do need to look after our own mental health and well-being as a part of the work that we do. But also, when we're in a better place ourselves mentally, psychologically, emotionally, we're also better able to serve our clients. And by doing this, we are able to get out of that getting stuck in the problem ourselves and separate ourselves a little bit and empower our clients to become accountable and make these changes that they need to make.
Yeah, very cool. Kylie, you're going to keep talking. I'm going to get you to speak into right now why resilience, because I love the way you explain it.
Can I remember what I've said in the past? Resilience is pretty much, I break it down very basically to it's coping. That's what it is. It's not this beautiful romantic thing where a trouble shows up and then all of a sudden, the clouds part and the sun shines through and Bambi skips past you. It's not pretty. It's actually hard. And I define resilience as getting back up again when you've been knocked over. It's coping with something when it shows up. It's feeling like you've got no options, but then knowing that if you just stop and look at your resources, that you can find something that can help you. And a big part of that is knowing what your resources are. So if you look at the model that we have on screen here, you can see why it's called the resilience donut, because it's a round model with a hole in the center. And the factors around the outside, these protective factors around the outside, are these external resources that we know through the research contributes to us being resilient. Now, the beautiful thing about this, for all of you perfectionists that are listening, we don't need all of these things working for us at once. We just need one or two. To be the most resilient you can be, if you've got three, that's fantastic, because we picture it being like a three-legged stool. You can imagine if you've only got one leg on a stool, it's a little bit shaky. Two is a bit more stable, but three, you are not going to fall off that stool. So we don't need everything working for us, but we do need to know what is working for me right now. The center of the model that's got the statements there, I have, I am, and I can, they are the positive or optimistic mindset statements, because the research shows us very clearly that an optimistic mindset is associated with being resilient. So what we want to do is teach our clients to, first of all, work out naturally, are they more optimistic or pessimistic? Because we all do have a bit of a tendency, especially under stress. And we want to know also at this point in time, when I'm facing this adversity, what type of thinking is going to serve me? So you might be sitting there going, well, it's always good to be optimistic, but there are certainly times when it isn't. And what I found is that the greater the risk that we are facing, the more likely that a pessimistic mindset will keep you safe, because you're risk averse when you're pessimistic. You're looking at the problem, you're trying to find the problem and create a way around it, or keep yourself safe. When there's low risk, we are very able to access an optimistic mindset. So we've got to teach our clients, well, how do I do that? And how do I do that easily? Because if I'm facing adversity, then I'm already struggling. So this model is very simple. In fact, it's so simple that sometimes that can be a barrier. I don't know how many times I've taught this to people that go, it can't be that easy. And they almost dismiss it. But it's like, please just give it a go and prove to me that this doesn't work, because I challenge you to do that. Yeah. So this is why resilience. It's because we are all facing adversity every single day of different kinds. I don't know, I even said to my husband earlier today, if it doesn't rain, it pours, because we've got a bit going on at the moment. And it's like, this is when you need to access your resources. So knowing what's working for you at any point in time is really critical to us coping.
Yeah. And one of the most powerful tools and things that you'll learn about this is that we can teach people how to activate their strengths or their factors for resilience before they're in that place of adversity, so that they've got the opportunity to practice them. That was a missing link for me, that I didn't realize that you could do that.
Yeah, so, that part's critical, Jo. I just want to jump in there and say, I often use the example of, it's very similar to, I used to teach anger management, which was a pretty interesting thing that I did a number of years ago. So I would go in and teach communication strategies to people that were on their final warning because of anger in the workplace. And I still, for the life of me, cannot understand why they only sent them for support on their third warning. For me, it would have been better on the first warning. So it was always men. There was very few women that turned up to this training. And these poor guys had no insight and would just lose it at the drop of a hat. And they're sitting in this classroom with me. petrified they were going to lose their job and wondering how on earth do they manage their anger. And it was, it's one of those perfect scenarios where you don't learn how to manage anger when you're angry.
Yeah.
You learn it when you're calm. So
Yes.
that's why it's so critical for us to learn about what are our strengths that are working for us all the time and at this moment, so that when adversity shows up, we can access them. And the beautiful thing about the model in front of you is that it changes as your life changes. So a factor that might be really strong for you right now, it could shift in a week's time, in a month's time, in a year's time. But you can always go back to this learning and look at it from the perspective of right now, what is working for me.
Yeah, it's great. Yes, I'm sold. You've sold me. We'll get to how she sold me in a minute. So we know that there's a lot of training on resilience and lots of programs teaching people what resilience is. One of the differences that we know that we do, we're very good at getting in the trenches with people and helping them do the do. So we have coupled this with what we call neuro-based coaching to help people not only learn the concepts, practice the concepts, get reinforcement for the concepts, and using their brain in a way that their brain is going to help them remember and practice and integrate. So let me explain a little bit about neuro-based coaching, because it's probably not what you think. So neuro-based coaching is about using a person's brain, the bits of their brain that are working to the best of their ability. So when you've got a client in front of you who is hypervigilant, anxious, stressed out, threatened, we already know that their limbic system is on overdrive, right? All they want to do is feel safe. So if we start sitting and teaching them concepts, if we start doing CBT with them or ACT with them or things like that with them, we're trying to get them to engage their frontal lobe when the back of their brain is going, danger, 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 danger. And we wonder why the information isn't sticking. We wonder why they're not actually doing anything. They're actually in a place where they can't take the information in. And this is one of the big challenges that Kylie and I saw in the work that we were observing other people doing, is that the clinicians are in such a rush because they've got so few sessions available to work with the client that they feel like they've got to spew forth all the information for the client to be able to take away and learn. I'm going to give you all the stuff, rather than the skill of what we have is to help that client get into a place where they're ready to learn, where they're ready to make change, and where they're ready and able to then integrate new information and create new habits. So the way that we do this, the way this program is put together and the way these tools are taught to you, is we actually have to apprehend people's mindset. We actually need to teach people what their mindset is. Most people have no clue. They have no clue what their mindset is. They didn't even know it was a thing. Then we have to help them participate in a mind shift, which is generally letting people know they do have some control here. You can get yourself into a position where you feel safe again. Because then what that starts to do is help people understand, I've actually got some competence. I can actually do stuff. I'm not useless. I'm not failing all the time, which means I have some capability. There's things that I can learn. I have knowledge, I have skills, I have resources, I have tools, I have relationships. And then we find that people actually build their capacity out. So we often think that competence is around a specific professional skill. We actually need to become competent in learning how to activate resilience so that the next time we participate or have an adversity happen, we actually know what to do to get us through. This will not stop adversity. Good grief. Have you seen the news today? It will not stop adversity. But what we're going to be able to do is help people come out with less baggage, damage, trauma, not none, but less, and more tools and skills to be able to work through that. Win, 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 win.
I often think of it, Jo, like an umbrella. I think about ability to be resilient as being like an umbrella. So it doesn't stop the storm or the rain, but it does protect us somewhat from whatever's coming.
Oh, that's so nice. I now want to change my picture from an oval egg to an umbrella.
I have a lovely one I can share with you, but I think your picture is great.
Very cool. So Kylie, I'm going to get you to share your story now, because your story is really relevant, because you learned about activating resilience because you were kind of sick and tired of burning out, right?
Oh gosh, yes. And I love these pictures because it shows how long ago some people take it. Yes, I found this training through a colleague in 2010, and I was burnt out at that point in time. I think I've told Joe before I was pretty crispy at the time, and I'd been burned out a few times before that because my career after I finished studying neurophysiology and behavior and then psychology, I worked in mental health for about 4 or 5 years before I went over to vocational rehab. So I literally burned out in mental health and was dealing with someone who was helping someone as a rehab counselor. I thought, oh, that sounds like a fun job because I can help people do something positive, like get a job. And I joined the industry, only to find that, you know, it was almost like it was going to be the answer to all of my problems, but there were just different problems that we were facing and different things that we were struggling with. And so I found this training in 2010, and I went along to a 2 or 3 day training that taught me about the model and how to use it. And then I'm one of those people that will learn for the rest of my life. I have a spreadsheet for all the courses that I buy and have bought and haven't done still, and I still buy them and I still put them in my spreadsheet, and I will get them all done one day. But I'm a learner. That's one of my biggest strengths. And I was so keen when I heard about the model that I wanted to use it in my practice as a clinician, but also teach other people. So I did the accreditation and became a resilience coach way back then. And I've been using it in my practice ever since. And I do have to say that it certainly did help me with burnout, because it takes the pressure off you as a clinician to solve the problems of your clients. It helps you to distill what are the problems and what are the barriers, and also what is the goal of the client here. Because I know we are doing this really beautiful dance sometimes it's not so beautiful, between what the insurer wants and what the doctor wants and what the client wants and what can we do and what's the rule book that we're playing by. And so to actually be able to verbally explain to a client, this is where I can help you and this is what I can do, this is where you come into it, it's incredibly freeing, and it takes a lot of the pressure and stress off. So I have been using this in a professional capacity since 2010. And as Joe mentioned earlier, I still train other people how to use it all the time in lots of different industries. And I use it with my clients to coach them as well. So I'm very passionate about this as a tool. And I also use it in my personal life. I mean, I've taught this to my kids. I've had lots and lots of things that have happened in my life that are definitely what we would call adversities. And I've taught this principle to my kids, and they've made a real difference. You know, I've gone from one of my youngest, who's now 22, who was probably one of the biggest pessimists I'd ever met, to teaching him some mindset tools so he can sort of look back at things now and go, oh, that's a bit pessimistic. Do I want to change that? Which is a wonderful thing to be able to share with your family as well as with the people that you work with. So I really cannot say enough positive about this model.
Yeah, I think, and it's wonderful to always hear your lived experience about it, because, you know, there's so many tools on the market, there's so many things that we can learn. And I know there's a couple of people on this live on this call today who just love learning and want to find another resource. But when we can find a tool that helps us while we're helping our clients, I'm like, for me, that feels like a match made in all the heavenly places for us.
And I think, Joe, like what you said before, just jumping in for like a little bit more, this is what I would call a foundation tool. So this is something that I believe if your client needs this, if you're identifying some complex issues and their mindset is potentially a problem and they're not necessarily being accountable for their own decisions, then this is a really helpful tool, because without doing this work in the beginning, then it's not going to help you progress to where you want to go further with the work with the client.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some great examples of how we came up with the stuck people and helped them move forward because they learned to do it for themselves. But let me share with you my resilience story, because I was one of those people that went, oh my God, here's that word again. Resilience, blah, 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 blah. I don't know if you realize that it's just one of those words that's been thrown around, used, weaponized. If you were just more resilient, then this wouldn't be happening. Or in my case, Joe, you're so resilient. I'm like, what does that even mean? And we've got workplace wellness programs and workplace wellness coaches who talk about resilience all the time. I never found any substance. And I think that's what was missing for me. It was like, it just felt like it was this bubble of something that wasn't concrete or something I couldn't explain, something I couldn't touch or wasn't tangible, until I was diagnosed with cancer and Kylie was in my world. So it's fairly recent for me. So I was diagnosed in 2020. I don't relate to the woman with the shoulder length curly hair anymore either, Kylie, in case you're wondering. And I asked Kylie, I said, is there something in that resilient stuff? And I think that was probably the way I described it, that you think could help me get through this next, 12 months, because I really did think it was only going to take me a year to get through. And Kylie took me through the tool and taught me how to apply my factors. And I can assure you that the resilience factors, when I applied them, when I was having my worst days from chemo, I applied the tools that I'd learned, my factors, and it made all the difference. Now, did it stop me from feeling really sick? No. Did it help me to stop feeling as miserable? Yes. And it helped me adopt a mindset that said, one day this will be history. This is not my life forever. And it was just such a powerful way for me to be able to, because I had the opportunity to practice, and because I had somebody in my world at the right time who was able to say, hey, Joe, what can you do for a skill today? So one of my factors is work. So if I'm not at work, then I'm actually going to be more miserable. I'm not as nice a person when I'm not working. But there were days when I was going through all that treatment where work was just not an option. Like I made some pretty big financial errors when I was trying to work. But one of the skills I had was being able to craft. So I got involved in making blankets that were then distributed to people living rough here in Western Sydney, and I got to contribute to that. So every time I was making up these blankets, I was feeling good about doing something that was purposeful for me. And that's how activating resilience has now turned up for me. Very, very cool. Very cool. But yeah, I was not a big believer in that at all. So we want to move on and help you understand why we know our approach works. Okay, so again, I just want to remind you that this is in the context of us helping people to return to work, but you can put anything in there. So in the little overlapping circles of the Venn diagram here. So the thing we need to understand is we're about helping people take back control, but we don't get them to where they used to be. Like there's this kind of myth that everything before the day I got sick or the day I got injured or the day I got diagnosed, my life was perfect and brilliant and awesome. And I want everything to go back the way that it was there. It's actually not truth. It's a myth. We just decided that history was better than what it is. So we're actually going to help people transform. So we're going to help people take back control, and we're actually going to lead them through a transformational process. And they don't like hearing that right at the beginning. So be very, very careful using that language. You need to know this so you can help them understand where they're going. But what we know works is when a client or a person in your world is engaged first, then they're empowered, then they become equipped, we start to see them taking responsibility and action themselves. So when we have an engaged client who is also empowered, they start asking positive questions like, why is work a good idea? Why is it better for me to adopt these principles? Why do I want to feel better? How do I want to turn up in this world? When we have a client who is then empowered and equipped, they start asking questions like, what have I got to offer? Rather than nobody wants me, everybody hates me, I've got nothing to give to the world here. And when we've got clients who are engaged and equipped, they start asking questions about what's next. What do I need to do next? How do I move forward? So when we put these three components together, we're actually helping people get ready for change. We're not telling them how to do it. We're not forcing it on them. They actually get ready for change and make change themselves. That is why our approach works. But more than that, Kylie's going to tell you what the research actually says.
So the research, it's really, really interesting, the research, and we've got some wonderful research around this model particularly, but it tells us that recovery and returning to meaningful employment or activity requires a few things to be successful. So it definitely requires a person-centric approach, which is exactly what we have. It definitely requires engagement with the client. And I don't know about you guys, but working with someone and empowering them to make the change that is required for them to reach their goals is definitely more engaging than turning up and giving them your own agenda and helping them to get to wherever you think they need to be. We also want to have activity that is meaningful to the client, which, you know, we've already covered. If you are engaging them for their own purposes to get back to something that is meaningful to them, then that's very much engaging and it's very meaningful. And it's also comprehensive because this is a whole of life approach and it has a psychosocial educational basis.
Yeah. So the perfectionist in me is not enjoying the fact that some of our slides have come out all wonky today. I'm just going to say that because, you know, when I proofread this and went through it yesterday, they weren't wonky. So I don't understand what's happened there. But the research evidence is really clear about what it takes for people to recover. So we have made sure that in the program and the way we're approaching this, that we're meeting what the research tells us. And then we're going to start telling you, we've told you our lived experience, which works. The research evidence tells us what works. And now we're going to start showing you some what clients do that works. Okay. So the overall theme of this program could be summed up in I can. So it's helping people move away from the I can't into helping people move into an attitude of I can. It's probably the biggest mindset shift that we can make. But again, we can't tell people that this is what's going to happen. They need to experience it. And our aim of this program is to help every participant understand that they can take back control of their life following an injury, illness, or disability. Now, it doesn't mean that their life is going to be perfect, but they can have some sense of control. So that's the aim of the program. And the anticipated outcomes is that clients will then see the potential for change. They will actually get excited around, oh, I can change for the better here. They become educated, they are empowered, and they're engaged to make this change, which means they don't always have to come back to another person to be able to do this the next time. We actually can discharge them from therapy knowing that they're equipped to deal with what they want to deal with. And we help them identify how to, well, not even identify and practice how to make change using their own resilience factors. We're not prescribing anything here. We're actually helping them identify what it is that's already inside of them that they can use to help their life become even better. That's the concept that we're trying to explain here. All righty. So we want to help you take your clients through their journey of sickness, being disabled and being passive, onto a journey of wellness, ability, and being able to thrive. But we want to do it so that you have the skills and the tools to be able to do it. And the way that we do that is by teaching you, by you doing the program, because we don't want this to be head knowledge. And what we have observed and what people have told us that is when you start to apply these principles and these tools to yourself, it improves satisfaction and people are experiencing less burnout. We did not know that that was going to be a factor. We did not know that that was going to be an outcome. It's just been, ooh, that's cool. So that you can then coach your clients, you can have them engaged, motivated, rather than disengaged and unmotivated. Who doesn't want to work with an engaged and motivated client? Like, if you prefer to work with disengaged, unmotivated people, then hats off to you. I probably need to refer a lot of people to you. Actually, I've learned how to turn a disengaged, unmotivated person into an engaged, motivated person. Doesn't happen in one session. Okay. Kylie, you want to talk about some of the goal setting that we do with people and how we've changed that?
Yeah, absolutely. This process, you know, really gets the client to sit back and think about, you know, what do I want to achieve? And again, it's so easy for us to hear a goal and go, oh, that's not going to happen, or even say something to that effect. But we don't do that in this work. So, for example, there's a fellow that I worked with that started off with the goal of being able to play golf again, and his actual goal was, I want to play golf, but I know it's impossible. Interesting goal. And he also wanted to have no more pain. Now, this was a man with a long-term chronic back injury that was not going to improve, and he had not been at work for well over 6 or 7 years. So going through the process of looking at what are his resilient factors, what are the things in his life that are working, and what does he want to get to in terms of his life, he actually was able to set some more resourceful goals after a period of time. And this was not through me saying, your goals aren't going to work, let's look at them again. It's him sort of looking at it and going, well, okay, I don't think I'm going to achieve that, so what can I work on? And so his more resourceful goals became things like finding more helpful ways to manage his frustration, because he was one of those clients that the insurer would call and say, you know, he's been abusive on the phone again. They actually, at some point in time, pretty much blocked him from making contact with the insurance company because he would just call them and just rant because he was just so frustrated. So one of the most amazing parts of this program was helping him to learn some ways to manage his frustration so that he didn't do that anymore. And he also set a goal of being able to go places with his partner and his granddaughter and spend quality time. Being a man in chronic pain, he was one of these really, really stubborn men that, you know, he would say things like, I know that standing for a long time makes my pain worse, but then he would go and stand for a long time and make his pain worse. So we taught him some other ways to be and some other things he might be able to do that didn't necessarily aggravate his pain. And what he found was connecting with those parts of his life that gave him a sense of well-being and joy. It changed everything. And so, you know, this fellow ended up, you know, being able to go for a short walk with his granddaughter to the park and push her on the swing for a little bit of time and then have a seat himself and not feel guilty that he had to sit down, but realize that, well, if I sit, then I can stay and play for longer. So we really went from an unrealistic place to a very resourceful place, and it was a very big change for this gentleman.
Yeah. See, engaged, motivated clients, even coming up with their own achievable goals. And then we can say, look at how well our therapies worked, like inside ourselves. We can say that to ourselves. So I want to start sharing with you, share with you now some of the impacts of clients have had when they've pulled out some of the factors that were working for them. So we talked about the donut with the factors around the side. We're going to talk into that now. So this particular person had a resilience factor of friends. Okay. Friends were a strength of theirs. So the client stated that he had removed himself from his important friendships due to a sense of shame of not being able to work. Now, I am sure we have had every client be able to tell us how they have socially isolated because they're ashamed that they're not the same as they used to be. They've had this diagnostic label put on them. People look at them strange now, or they're not working, or they're not as good as they used to be. Because he actually felt like his mates wouldn't want to spend time with him, right? He had this belief. He hadn't tested it. But when we got him to work through this factor and start testing it out and start going, well, what could you do? He actually found that the opposite was true, and that spending time with his mates lifted his spirits and overall improved his well-being, and nobody was rejecting him. Okay. And we know that isolation is a big part of pretty much anybody's injury, illness, disability history. We hear it all the time, which is why we brought it up. So imagine being able to help people understand that, hey, you've got a strength with your friends here. What is something that we can do to help you reconnect with them? Which means you've got a lot of therapy, coaching that you get to do to help them move to that point. Don't just realize it's not that you just throw out the word friends and everybody's going to feel hunky-dory. Like, this is where your therapeutic expertise actually turns up.
Definitely.
Yeah. Kylie, do you want to speak into education?
Yeah, so it's funny, you look at education and you think, oh, schools, books, learning, degrees, but no, it's not just that. And when we go through the program and teach you guys about how the model works, we teach you about how the factors show up. And in the resilience factor of education, it's not just about the learning that you've done or the institutions that you've been a part of, but it's about your attitude toward learning. And we noticed with this fellow, he actually wasn't someone, I don't think he'd finished more than year 10 at school, and most of the learning he'd done was on the job, but he was actually an avid learner and he loved to learn. And he really grabbed onto the mindset work that we were doing and just really, really enjoyed it. And he found this really strong link between his thinking and his pain. And what he noticed was that when he would get this very strong pain, which was very, very often, he would start to panic. And then as he panicked, the pain would get worse, and it was this spiraling upwards awful pattern that he had. And so what he started doing was something a bit different. And we taught him some skills and strategies about not panicking when he had significant pain, and to remind himself that when he's in that state of panic, that we can sometimes feel like things are going to last forever when that's not actually the truth. And to remind himself that this will pass, which would then help him relax a little bit more and help him cope. So that he got to this place where the strong pain would show up, but he would be able to remind himself of, this will pass. This is what I can do. Again, another I can moment. This is what I can do in this moment to cope with this very strong pain. And it just gave him such a sense of control, because he really felt like the pain was in control of everything. And it was just such a breakthrough for him. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it's very, I remember the day you told me about that one. We were both cheering over the phone for each other.
Oh, but he reduced his narcotic pain medication by like more than half, which was just astounding.
Yeah. Do you want to take us through the resilience factor of skills? Because I feel like I talked about that when I was sharing my history. Yeah, sure. So skills can, again, cover anything that is something that an activity that we do that makes us feel competent and confident. So this client found that he was using his strengths to do activities that allowed him to feel more confident and have a sense of contribution. And that helped him to better manage his pain in the absence of pain medication. So this fellow, he sort of thought that a rehab program had to be all about work. And what we found was that he actually had some really great skills at creating and making things. He was an avid painter. He would carve things out of wood. He would be sitting in his recliner carving things out of wood or doing painting and things. And he didn't put the connection between doing something that makes him feel good and makes him feel this sense of accomplishment and feeling good in his well-being. So when we were able to link that for him and show him that doing this activity is going to help him with his recovery, it almost like gave him permission. It was really, really wonderful. Yeah, that's the skills one is a favorite one for me, because I'd say if I can do something, but again, a missing link for me was not understanding that feeling competent made me feel better about myself. And it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing for so many people.
Especially
so overall, we want to. Yep.
Sorry, I was just going to say. Especially, I was going to say that competence is something that a lot of our clients have had stripped away from them because they've lost their job and their career. And when you think about it, our society puts a lot of focus on what we do for a living and what our skill sets are and what our qualifications and our career is. So when that's been taken from you, it's like this big part of your identity has been stripped away, and the other stuff isn't as important. So it's this real revisiting back to the core of who are we and what makes us who we are that this program helps.
Yeah. So Kylie and I have run the coaching program and the training program that we're going to talk about in a minute, not for long, I promise. And these are some of the things that other clinicians have said to us. One of the most powerful things we heard was, I've learned that my strengths strengthen me. And it was just, it was a goosebump moment for us, is understanding that when you know what your strengths are, they're there to strengthen you, not to spend so much time plugging your weaknesses. Like, my strength strengthens me. We had another clinician say, since learning how to use the resilience donut tool, that they are noticing more positives in their work and life. Like, that must feel good for them. And then we had a team leader say, I've learned the power of having resilient conversation with my kids and in my team meetings. And I think we were both a little bit impressed that he turned up and said it was his kids first and his team meetings. It was almost like he went, oh yeah, work's paying for me to be here. I better say something about work as well. Really cool.
It was.
It was. And the impact has been good on us, because, you know, Kylie and I are feeling competent and being able to share our joy with people. Now, I am very aware of the time, so I'm just going to move on to this success step. So if you want the thing to take away from today with everything that you've heard in the summary, this is the slide for you. Okay. Now, how we help complex, stuck, sticky clients make meaningful change while we can feel good about our work is, number one, we have to engage clients before we empower them, before we educate them. Help them use their brains the way their brains are able to be used. We can't educate before they're engaged, right? It just won't work. Okay. And that's why so much doesn't work. So that's the first. Oh, look at that. We've got number ones all down the side. So the priority is all of these are important. Love how that's worked today. Number one, ensure you're meeting your clients where they're at right now. And Rosemary's written a great, she's shared with us in the meeting chat. Ensure you're meeting your clients where they're at right now, not where you need them to be. And the pressure on all of us who have got, you know, insurance companies to answer to, or co-payments to answer to, or deductibles to answer to, or plans to answer to, or my God, everything's going to get stripped away from me tomorrow. Is the NDIS even going to exist tomorrow? This is really hard. But the most effective thing we can do is help a client feel seen and heard. And once a client feels seen and heard, then they're actually going to want to start taking action. So we've got to ensure that we're meeting our clients where they're at right now, not where we need them to be. And the next thing we want to do is actually understand what resilience is and how to activate it. Not just tell somebody, be more resilient. Here's a book about somebody's resilience journey. You've got to teach them how to turn it on in themselves. You got to teach them when they're well, when they're not needing to activate their resilience, so they can practice and get ready for the next time they have a flare up or a disagreement, or they do something wrong, or they don't manage their anger, or they're about to get pulled in for another performance disciplinary meeting at work, or things don't go as well as they wanted in another part of their life. Because this is in following those three things, you're going to start feeling much more satisfied in your work, and you're going to start taking some of that burden off you as well. So how do we want to help? Kylie, do you want to go through this next part?
Yeah, sure. So what we've done is we've designed an 8-week online program to coach you guys. It's designed for people that are health professionals that work with other people that face adversity. So it's not limited to the return to workspace. It's if you're working with people that face adversity, then this program can definitely help you. It's designed to start you with the basics and step you through each of the things that you need to learn in the right order. And you're not just learning, but you're doing in between. So you've got an online module that teaches you the concepts you need to practice. You've then got some homework activities that you actually need to practice before we then catch up in the coaching call to answer your questions. So if you're doing all of those things, you've got so many opportunities to learn and grow and ask questions if something does feel funny, because let's face it, you know, I know for me, when I did this training all those years ago, I had to go home and implement this on my own. And if I didn't know what was happening, or if a client didn't answer me the way I wanted them to, I was like, oh, crap, what do I do now? But with this approach, you guys are getting all of those questions answered as you go. And because we're doing that, you're building your confidence and your competence as we go through the process, so that at the end of the 8 weeks, you've got a tool that you know how to use, you've got evidence that it works, and you've had all your questions answered. And just so you know, the next program starts in August this year.
Yep. Sorry, I just had really big train go past my house. So and you may have been interested in, like, why have we structured the learning the way that we have? Well, it's because we actually understand the neuroscience of your brain. We have got so much information coming at us all the time that we all promise ourselves that we're going to go back and listen to things and learn things and revisit things later, and nobody does.
Yeah.
Right. We understand that. So we have designed this in such a way that it's in bite-sized chunks, that you go away, you watch the video, you fill out the workbook, and you come back to the session. You have to do some practice. You come back to the session, and we actually help you overcome the stuck parts. So that you're not sitting there feeling underconfident, that you haven't gone and invested all of this time and energy and money and learning a new skill or a new tool, and then going, I don't know how to practice it. Because you know what? Health professionals hate to feel like they're going to get it wrong.
Yes.
Hate it. So we will often not try and do anything for fear of wanting to get it wrong. So we've created this program, and the way we put the learning together for you is so you actually can't get it wrong.
That's right.
We took all the risk out of it for you. So I'm going to be really conscious for time, but I do want to open it up right now for any questions that anybody has. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, which means I'm going to see either all of your beautiful faces or blank screens, depending on whether you've got your camera on or not. But get ready to type your questions in the chat for me. That would be really great. Oop. Oh, thanks, Jane. How many hours a week is the course? Well, you've got about half an hour to an hour's learning to do, and then you've got an hour's coaching call. So 2 hours of direct learning, but then you actually get the option to go and play with your new learning with your clients.
Okay.
Yes.
So
and each of the things that we've got you to do for that practical learning, you can do within a session with a client. So it's not going to be an extra thing to do.
Yeah, you don't have to go and find people to practice on. They're right there in front of you. and you don't even have to have clients in the room with you. You could do it by telehealth. You could do it on the phone. Yeah. Jane, do you have another question?
Oh, I was just going to ask, so say that like I've been given a referral to sort of, even one insurer had said to me, just get straight into it. Just get straight into the vocational counselling. And then I meet the client, and it was actually a similar scenario to this, where there was just, he was kind of too anxious to be able to take in the activities that I wanted to do. So I actually did this activity called the Wheel of Life, which was okay because you rate your level of satisfaction on the different domains of life. And so the high ones, I was kind of saying, oh, well, that's great, you've got these. And then it was kind of like, great, let's move on. There wasn't kind of any other application with it. So if you were using this, do you think that you could administer it in a couple of sessions, but then sort of keep it going in the background as well? Is that kind of...
Can I answer that one, Jo?
Yeah.
You can.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, this tool is designed to be, look, it takes less than 20 minutes to do with a client. And so it's very, very quick. It can easily be done in a session. And what you do from that is you're then looking at practical ways that the person's strengths show up for them, and it's everyday ways. So they then get to go away with this new awareness of, oh, I'm using my strengths when this happens, or I'm using my strengths when that happens. And we teach them to do what we call linking their strengths, because the more times you use your strengths together, you get this this greater sense of resilience that happens. So for example, with my strengths, one of my strengths is the skill of learning, and another strength is sharing that with people I care about. So I know for me that when I put those two things together, so I learn something and then I share it with someone that I care about, I get this exponential sense of resilience. So we go through the factors with the client, we work out how do these show up for them in an everyday circumstance, and then how can they put these things into place to make sure that they're using them. And it's something that we grow in steps with each session that we do to find out, have you been using your strengths this week? If you didn't, why didn't you? What's happening with your mindset? So it's something that we keep revisiting, because our strengths change all the time, and also the way we use them can change as well. So it's something that we keep referring back to while we do other things in the future.
Yeah, and then when you start to get into the strengths for work or the things for work, then you already have their buy-in.
Absolutely, and they've got that sense of competence already, so that it's not like, oh, I haven't used this for 7 years, I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, it works really beautifully like that.
The other thing that we've developed as well is, as bonuses for the program, is we've actually got coach or session tools. So tools that we have created. There's actually a 4-week or 4-session coaching program or therapeutic program that you can take people through. So for example, if you've got a client and you're like, I actually don't know where to start, we've got a whole structure on the first 4 sessions that you can take people through. And that's that we're just including that, because once you understand the principles, the tools and the resources that we actually gift you and put them in the structure for you, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. So it actually, and then you'll get the momentum. It'll be like the client will come in and say, this week I want to talk to you about the fact that so-and-so spat on me on the street, and you know, you can start using the language. It gives you and your client a common language and a common way of thinking about things. But it also stops the client from spiraling. You know how those clients come in and they go, the world sucks, the world sucks, the world sucks, the world sucks, I suck, everything sucks. And by the end of that session, you're like feeling miserable. It gives you some tools and some phrases and some language to use to actually stop that spiral. Okay, not negate their experience, but help interrupt that spiral for them. It's really powerful.
Yeah, we developed that language, and also the examples of questions as well, because again, we were like, you might step everyone through this program, and then some people will still go, oh, I don't know how to ask that question, so I'm not going to ask it. So we're like, we've even got scripts. So we're removing the barriers, and every time one shows up, we will develop something else to remove the barrier. So we really want this to be something that you guys can take away and start doing straight away.
Because it sounds like the skill is delving out the connection, because someone might not see that connection, you know, like the examples that you were giving of, well, this is my skill of doing this or this. If you just got them to do the circle and the donut, they'd be like, well, I don't have any skills. Yes. Or, you know, it's the questioning around, well, what about your hobbies, or what about this or that, and seeing the connection. We step them through each of the areas to work out what their strengths are, and it's got to be from the client's perspective. So we can't ever sit with someone and tell them what their skills are, because we don't know what it's like from their perspective. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this yourself, but if someone tells you you've got a skill that you don't believe you have, it's actually a really awful experience, because we don't believe it. And we don't feel heard or seen. So really being able to step in with people and go, you know, this is what skills might look like. Tell me what happens in your life. Tell me how this shows up for you. We can work out very quickly what areas are working and what areas aren't so strong.
Cool. Well, just before we finish up, I'd love to thank you, Jessica. I'd love for you to get your typing fingers out for those of you who are left. What is one takeaway that you can put in the chat for us today? Something that you've learned or you've had reinforced. This is the way we start integrating the information today. Put it in the chat for us so we can share and affirm and learn. Thank you. I appreciate the thanks, Ilse. So what's something that you learned? What is something that you hadn't heard of? What is something that was reinforced for you? Can you have a minute and put something in the chat? Kylie, did anything new come up for you today?
Not today, but just in the last couple of days for me, I've had a real revisit and a real reframe around the importance of meeting someone where they're at. And it came up, I was doing a session actually on Monday night with a school group of parents that are from Victoria that were wanting to learn about activating resilience in their teenagers. And it was this whole idea that when someone comes to us with a problem, which, let's face it, happens in every part of every day of our lives as the professionals that we are, the first thing we want to do to make ourselves feel validated and feel special and feel important is solve the problem. And that's the worst thing that we can do, because we then are dismissing the person's experience. That the first thing we really need to do is validate their emotions and listen to what is going on, and then empower them to work out what resources have I got so I can solve this problem. And that's really the principle of what this model helps us to do. So I've just been really reminded of the importance of that in the last couple of days. And it's something that I think is very powerful.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for staying and being so attentive. I appreciate it, especially for those of you who are in a completely different time zone who may be ready to go to bed. If you've got questions, if you think about this tomorrow over the coming days, you'll have an email address from me. Shoot your questions back. Come find me. Ask a question. Please ask me a question. We would love to know more about how we can serve you with this and how we can help more and more people understand how to activate their resilience. Absolutely. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So now you've heard about our Activating Resilience program, and I am a testament to the fact that it works. So when I was first diagnosed with bilateral breast cancer in 2020, my attitude towards resilience was, it's a thing that's not going to apply to me. Fortunately, Kylie was in my world and she cared enough about me to help me understand how I could activate my own resilience. And I can assure you that learning how to do that, learning what my innate strengths for overcoming adversity were, helped me get through that treatment and all of the things that have gone on afterwards. The beautiful thing for me, however, is being able to observe that since I've returned to work, the impact that teaching my clients, both clinical clients and coaching clients, how to activate their own resilience and what that has meant for them. So for me, I am seeing increased engagement from my clients. I am seeing increased responsibility, increased accountability, shorter duration and timeframes to achieve outcomes, and improvements to quality of life. Win, win, win. The big win, however, is I don't feel like I'm doing as much of the heavy lifting for my clients anymore. It has made my work feel so much easier, and I am now feeling a heck of a lot more fulfilled. So as you've heard in the program, it's 8 weeks and there are a ton of resources. We promise you that this training will not be just another intellectual exercise where you end up with a ton of resources that sit in the library of forgotten knowledge. No, no, no. From session 1, from week 1, we will be helping you to implement. We have got scripts for you. We have got questions for you. We've even got a whole coaching program so that if you don't even know where to start right from the beginning, you've actually got a guide that will help you activate resilience in your own clients. That is pretty cool. Isn't it time that you learnt how to do really great work with your clients in a way that looks after you? Yeah, I think so too. To make it easy for you, all you need to do is click the link and you can register or learn more information.